Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Amir Karam, board-certified facial plastic surgeon and the founder of KaramMD Skin. And on today's episode of Skin School, we're going to talk about a very important and foundational topic, and that is what are the concerns that you need to address with a skincare routine, and what are the specific ingredients should ideally be included in any comprehensive and effective skincare routine. So let's break it down. But I want to first start off by explaining why this topic is so important. It starts with this simple observation. As a facial rejuvenation specialist and treating patients over the last nearly 20 years, I've recognized that between facial shape and young-looking skin, you have the components to make a young-looking face. And by that I mean what makes a person look young is the co-contribution of youthful-looking skin and youthful-looking facial shape, both of which are being addressed by two totally separate approaches. One is being addressed by surgical intervention. That's where we do like vertical restore and do all the things that put the face back into its youthful shape. And then the things that are involved in making the skin looking young, well, that's on you. Those are the things that you have to do on a regular basis. And when you do those things and you bring them together, wow, you truly do look as young as you feel. And when you don't, you have a very improved facial outcome, but you don't have the same overall youthful look that somebody has when they have both of those. So I became extremely passionate about focusing equally on shape and skin, as I felt that it was in my duty ultimately to give you the absolute best opportunities to meet your facial rejuvenation goals. So as part of that, we as a practice, became very involved in discussing and organizing our patients post-operatively on a good skincare routine. And this started nearly 10 years ago. And what I realized is that the more you learn about skin, the more there is to know about it. And I think at this point we have a very good understanding of what those components need to be to address all the different changes that are happening simultaneously with skin. So without further ado, let's break it down. So what is, first of all, happening with skin was in a very detailed way discussed in our last episode of Skin School. And what we're going to do is we're going to piggyback upon that knowledge. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that, I would highly suggest watching that, perhaps after this, or maybe you've already have watched it. But I want you to take those components into consideration, those changes into consideration, because that's going to be what explains the needs for what we're going to talk about here. And in a summary type of a way, let's just break those things down. What are the problem areas? What are the changes that happen with skin? So number one, changes are related to fine lines and wrinkles. Number two is the thinning of the skin, loss of elasticity and loss of collagen. Number three, there's a lack of firmness in aging skin. There's uneven tone and discolorations, both in terms of brown spots and red spots. There's textural changes. The skin appears dull, loses its radiance, that bright luminosity. The skin barrier function begins to diminish as time goes on, making it more susceptible to environmental damages. Then there's actual environmental damages between sunlight and free radicals. The skin becomes more dry and dehydrated. And ultimately also we see changes in pore size, resulting from congestion. So those are the changes that are happening to aging skin. So when you look at that, you're like, okay, there needs to be a way of addressing each of them, but they're very different things, right? So one of the fundamental changes is this progressive loss of collagen production. Well, that needs its own focus. Changes in pores. You might not know this, but changes in pores is related to what's happening on the surface of the skin, causing the pores to become congested and therefore more dilated. Pigmentation changes, very important. Youthful skin is bright and fresh looking. It doesn't have blotches of either brown or red discoloration. Dryness contributes to the fine lines and wrinkles and the crepiness. So all of these things are happening simultaneously. So in order to address them in a skincare routine, you need to address each of them. So here's how it breaks down. Number one, most important thing, if you're young enough to in your 20s and 30s and you're hearing this, please take this into consideration. Sun protection is the absolute most important single step in terms of prevention of skin changes. It probably by itself contributes to between 70 and 80% of that entire list I just mentioned. So sun protection in a preventative way is extremely important. And in order to prevent, you need to use a broad spectrum, ideally mineral-based sunblock that blocks both UVA and UVB light, and you need to use it regularly. And in some cases, you want to also use hats and facial masks if you know you're going to be in lots of sun. So sun protection is an extremely important part of your lifestyle. The second is what you put on your skin. In my opinion, you need to address each of the things that we just mentioned. So for dryness and lack of hydration, you want to have something like a hyaluronic acid component that brings hydration back to the skin, lipids that improve the equilibrium between the overproduction or underproduction, so your skin doesn't appear oily or too dry. So a lipid complex is very important. Then you get into the changes in collagen production. There you want to have things that are going to upregulate and stimulate collagen, and that's going to be things like retinol, it's going to be things like vitamin C, it'll be things like growth factor. You want to have those as part of your skincare routine so that you can maximize and keep those fibroblasts from producing collagen over time, which then will ultimately also help with elasticity and other components. But thicker skin is going to look more supple and more youthful. You want to address directly pigmentation, but as you know, prescription level hydroquinone is not something that you should be using on a regular basis. So a non-hydroquinone plant-based lightener is part of any routine. In addition to that, retinols and vitamin C directly address pigmentation as well. Vitamin C is by absolute measure an important part of any skincare routine because it does directly affect hydration, it affects the production of collagen, it helps decrease the pigment production, and all around gives the skin a brightness and a vibrance to it. So vitamin C is an incredibly important part of it. Niacinamide or vitamin B is also extremely important in the overall skin, the skin barrier as well as the skin function. Absolute must in a good skincare routine. Additionally, other components that are very important to have as part of your skincare routine is something to exfoliate the dead layers of the skin that happen on the upper layer of the epidermis called the stratum corneum. Those are extremely important because ultimately if that layer gets too thick, you start to see dullness and lack of luminosity and radiance to the skin. So that is an important part of any good long-term skincare routine. And typically those measures to exfoliate are done through chemical peels in the office, microdermabrasion, or even light laser peels. Additionally, you want things to address the pores. And remember, as we talked about in our last video, pores are a function of the health and the absolute function of the actual pore, which is a normal part of every skin. The sebation glands have a duct, and that duct gets clogged up. The pore will then become dilated, and as a result, end up becoming visible as a surface as little black dots or little pits in the skin. So if you keep the oil production reduced, allow the oil production to flow freely because you have a surface of the skin that's exfoliated, it's not clogged up, it's properly cleansed, and the integrity and the structure of the skin is good so those pores can remain upright as opposed to kinked. That's going to help. So what do you have to do for pore? You have to be on a good cleanser. And what I mean by a good cleanser is something that is non-foaming, that doesn't irritate the skin, that is hydrating. And that's a very, very important part of just daily AM, PM routine. In addition, exfoliation helps with that. And then all the things that we just mentioned that improve skin structure and integrity. So those are just the absolute musts in a good skincare routine because the ultimate goal is to have skin that is going to be free of discoloration, it's going to be thick and supple, that's going to bounce light off of it and have that luminosity and radiance to it, and it's going to be free from lines and wrinkles, and is going to be well hydrated and dewy. And when you look at all this together, you realize that the most important part of this is consistency after you've figured out what you need to use, because if you're not using these things on a regular basis, the genetic changes that are happening at the cellular level between upregulation of collagen, downregulation of melanin, and overall improvement of the components that make skin thicker and the equilibrium that is established between hydration and oil balance, pores being cleaned up, and all these things. Once you stop and start a skincare routine, you're basically taking 2 steps forward, 1 or 2 steps back, and you're treading water. Another very, very important part is that you want to make sure that the products and components that you're putting on your skin are scientifically tested and that are proven to actually show the results you're looking for. Just the important part is to do it and do it consistently, do it regularly, and do it in conjunction with good sun protection, because If you are out in the sun for a week on vacation and you're not controlling the amount of sun protection you get, then all those gains that you got from a pigmentation point of view will almost be back to square one. And then remember, most of us, especially those who are 40 something and above, have spent a lot of time in our youth in the sun, and now our skin is giving us the pigment, and it's giving it back to us in the form of hyperpigmentation and broken capillaries and redness and all these different pigmentary issues, in addition to all the things that normally happen with aging. So take control of the sun aspect and take control of your routine. And if you put those two things together and do it continuously over time, trust me, your skin's just gonna get better and better. And the proof is in the pudding. We've seen this time and time again with our own patients, as well as people we know who have been doing this and they're in their 70s and have beautiful, dewy, gorgeous looking skin because they've done these things throughout their entire life. All right, folks, I hope that helped. I hope that gave you perspective. I know it feels and sounds complicated, but taking all this and putting it into a very simple plan in our website really clearly explains these things as well and puts it in context of the problems with the particular solutions and ingredients that are associated with it, and you can pluck those and buy them individually, or again, get them as one unit as part of the trifecta. I hope this helped, and make sure that you share this with friends and family. We want to really empower you all to be able to take control of this very important part, because skin is in your hands and it's not in mine. If you like the content in this video, we'll be publishing skin-specific content as well as facial rejuvenation content 1 to 2 times a week, and short videos once a week as well. So this channel is loaded with facial rejuvenation education topics. So make sure you subscribe, send to friends and family. If you liked it, hit like. And if you have any questions at all, or just simply want to comment about the value of this video, please drop them in the comments below. And until next time, Dr. Karam.